and welcome to the next exciting episode of the eGPlearning Podblast. I'm Andy.
I'm Gandhi.
And I am Shubz.
So we've got someone new in the studio with us today. It's Shubz. Shubz, you're a fellow podcaster. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
So I am a GP and I host the podcast Two GPs in a Pod, where I talk to GPs and actually other clinicians and within primary care and secondary care who are doing something innovative, interesting, inspiring, or outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So we've been a fan of Shubz's podcast and talking on social media, and Shubz has joined us up in Nottingham to record this episode, which is fantastic. And Gandhi's special episode today?
Definitely. So, we're filming, recording live from Deep Dark Sherwood, with Robin Hood country and all that kind of stuff. We managed to get Shubz to brave his way over here to join us. Yep. Again, guys, we're upstairs in my house and stuff. So if you want to catch us on the YouTube video, feel free to go and have a look. But yeah, on this episode, we thought we'd get together with Shubz, have a bit of a chat about, all the various things that we like to talk about. So general practice, health tech, basically what we're up to, what he's up to. And we thought we'd talk a little bit about the future. We're about to hit New Year's Eve, aren't we? In fact, so.
It's Christmas, so I guess talk about Christmas. We can look backwards. There's Christmas past,
definitely.
Exactly. Present, what we're up to at the moment, and then we can look forwards to the future, 2019 and beyond.
Yeah. Very good metaphor there,
good.
Andy. Very, very good. I like it.
Effortless there, Andy.
Good. So, shall we kick off and just, I guess, talk about what we've all been up to over the last 12 months or a little bit more, and just recap on the year, I guess, before we start looking forwards.
Sure.
That's a great idea, yeah.
Shubz, you're the guest. So Gandhi and I are really curious about what you've been up to. So, what's been going on for you?
So I guess my project that I did before the podcast was mygpevents, which is a website that helps GPs find CPD events and networking near them. So and it's all completely free, and if you're organising events or if you're going or interested in going to events that are around you, it's free to use, and it's hopefully a useful resource. And I've kind of been doing that for the last kind of couple of years, and whilst I was doing that, I'd met so many interesting people, particularly GPs, who were doing such interesting things, and I kind of just had this real palpable feeling that me personally, as a GP locum, I'd felt quite, gone through periods of feeling quite disenfranchised and kind of, hearing a lot about the negative narrative of people leaving the profession or having to make a choice between, doing something they were really passionate about or having to stay in clinical practice. And yet I also knew these people or knew about these people who were doing incredible things despite the difficult terrain we work in. And I really enjoy podcasts myself, and I actually listened to a great podcast by Gimlet Media called Startup about a guy who creates a podcast and kind of his journey, and it kind of really inspired me to say, hey, why don't I disrupt the narrative, or change the narrative, or add to the narrative to tell the stories of these people. So I started that in February, and kind of had recorded a few with a few kind of well-known GPs who are doing things in terms, so like Zoe Williams and Rupy, the Doctor's Kitchen, and various other people, but also some people who are not that well-known, who had done really inspiring things. And I kind of just put 3 or 4 episodes out there in February, and it's kind of just built up from there. And it's been a really great, interesting journey doing that, and I've kind of learnt so much along the way, and it's been really, really inspiring to me.
Oh, fantastic. Shubz, so I'm going to dive in there. So what's been your big, you've learned a lot, so what's been your key learning throughout that journey over the year? Yeah,
good question, Andy. I think for me, the biggest learning is, it sounds a bit cheesy, but I don't think it has to be a choice. I think the big thing was, I thought it was just me who was trying to evangelize about this, I suppose, of you don't have to leave medicine to do all this other cool stuff. And, seeing the breadth of what people have managed to do, and not just kind of with portfolio careers, but even within partnership or being salaried, the breadth of what we're able to do as generalists, I think is the biggest take home message for me, of we can be generalists in the broadest sense. So not just from a clinical point of view, but we can add so much more with other interests, be that digital health, be that lifestyle stuff, be whatever it is, journalism or whatever. And also I think innovation doesn't always have to be technology as well. I think that was a big thing as well. So I think those are been the big things that I've learned, and a thing I'm kind of still trying to learn is how to juggle doing lots of different things, which would be good to get your thoughts on.
That's a topic we've talked about numerous times.
That might be something that we talk about, because it's something I think anybody who, having done a few of the interviews over the course of the year, anybody who is trying to do something else and juggle a clinical career always grapples with that difficult question of how to balance it all. Shubz, I'm going to take the heat off you. Yeah. Gandhi, so have you got any tips for balancing?
I think balancing is a key challenge. I mean, we talked about this in our podcast episode with myself, and we've talked about it with a few other people as well. How do you get that balance when you're trying to do, like you said, clinical commitments, trying to do your own kind of projects, as also keep that portfolio career? And I think that's the key part, is having the portfolio first of all, but it's also recognising that each part of that portfolio is going to take some of your time. And the important thing, I think, is to have some flux in there. You can't, the adage of doing 10 sessions as a GP doesn't work anymore. We know that. How many GPs can honestly, hand on heart, say they can do 10 clinical sessions a week now? Maybe a few out there. My hats off to them, literally, guys. Hats off. Good. Yeah. But realistically speaking, it's a massive way to burn out, particularly in modern primary care. So it's having, some space for yourself, some time for yourself. And that doesn't just mean, weekends off, that kind of stuff, because you still need downtime with family, friends, all that kind of stuff. This is actually just some developmental time. It's one of the key things I hear listening to all these, these people have reached the echelons, you listen to people like Warren Buffett, Pat Flynn, all these kind of people have done amazing kind of stuff. And they all say that they have some time that's just for them to kind of figure out what they want to do, whether it's, half an hour a day, or whether it's, one afternoon, that kind of stuff. They have that set aside time for their own projects. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned this year with trying to do this, the podcast, with doing clinical work and all the other kind of hats that, I wear.
And you wear many hats.
Yeah, unfortunately. Only one at the moment right now. But yeah, no, it's, yeah. Thanks, guys. Love you. But, it's making sure you've got that space. Because if you don't have it, when those pinch things happen, everything, naturally, there are pinch times. If you look at GP practice, quaff year is always a nightmare one, isn't it? Pre-winter, because it's the build-up and that kind of stuff. So making sure you've got some flux for the other stuff when that all kicks off as well is really important.
Good tips.
I mean, I totally agree. And I think in addition to that is when you also have, I think this has been a personal challenge for me. So I'm in GP locum, and actually, I guess one of the advantages of that is you don't have the additional kind of burdens that you guys would have as partners. However, when you do multiple things and are multitasking, there is this attenuation of, emotional and cognitive stamina that occurs. Where, some people say, well, you should focus, you should do one thing at one time. And if you're trying to juggle too many things at once, I think that can also, if you don't do it right, that can also drive burnout as well. So there's this paradox of, okay, it's great to do all these different things that we're interested in, but also having that space also from that to spend it with your family, to have some time, some downtime or some off time as well. I think that's one of the big things I'm trying to learn as well. I'm like a new dad as well, and it's a big challenge. I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah, I guess we're talking about balance, I suppose, aren't we? It's this old work-life balance chestnut that you still need, even if you're trying to do unconventional career activities.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it's important not to forget that when you're following your passion or doing something entrepreneurial, it's like, okay, you're doing that, that's great, that's adding to your work-life balance and you're doing this, but also how are you getting downtime from that as well?
Exactly. What do you think, Andy?
Have I got anything to add? So I echo everything you've said already. Two things I would say, actually. So I think one thing is like the importance of saying no to things.
Yep.
I think everyone goes through a phase in their career, and I think this is a phase I've just come out of, where there's lots of advantages to saying yes to opportunities. Do you want to attend this meeting about this technological project? Do you want to attend this other meeting about working at scale? And there's a part of your career where it's really good to say yes to all of those things, because it opens up lots of exciting opportunities. You get to meet people and network. However, I think there reaches a point where to be successful in what you choose to do, you've got to then choose to focus, and that means saying no to certain opportunities. So I think that's important. Gandhi, are you coming in here?
Yeah, and I think one thing I'd echo, so me and Andy have been part of something called the Next Gen programme, which is this amazing programme trying to instill enthusiasm and drive in the younger cohort of GPs to try and develop the future leaders. And it's run by Nishma Manek.
Yep.
And I apologise if I pronounced that wrong. And it's been a really interesting programme. And I guess one of the ones that really meant a lot to me when I heard it was the talk from Nikki Kanani. I always make this mistake.
Supreme Leader.
Yeah, Supreme Leader is one.
Ultimate controller of primary care.
Yeah, so official title, acting head of primary care for NHS England. So you know, kind of the top kind of thing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she pointed out was the way that she gets to be so effective, and I hand on heart believe that she is very effective, is that she has a great team of people around her. And it's interesting that you mentioned the whole concept about locum and the challenges that it has. I know for me, being a partner in a practice is challenging at times because you've got the commitment and the responsibility that comes with it. But I know that having that team around me that supports me, that allows me to, you know, do things when the flux hits, kind of thing. And it's personal experience. This past week, I've had a really bad week, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons. And my partners have supported me through that and meant that I can still function and carry on. And, you know, because of that, I'm back here and doing things with you guys right now. So, you know, and that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't got the team around me to, you know, pick up the slack when I wasn't able to be there. So, you know, I think that's another thing is to look at the people around you, look how they support. I mean, me and Andy have been doing this now for a year, and it's been going amazingly because we keep feeding off each other, you know, being able to drive this further forward, and it's having that team with you.
I think that's really key. And you know, if you have that, it definitely takes some of that burden off you. You're accountable to each other. You get things done as well, and I think it's great that you have that. Yeah,
I'm just coming very similar point, but working with a partner is really useful because perhaps if Gandhi and I had tried to do this podcast on our own, we probably wouldn't have been as productive because you have some obligation to show up and do the podcast at the time you've said.
Agreed.
Because you've made a promise to somebody else that you're going to do it. So I think actually finding partners who share where you want to go and your interests and working with them is really important.
Absolutely. So with mygpevents, I have two guys I work with called Mehul and Max, and they're absolutely fantastic partners to have and taking, you know, what we're trying to do forward. And that completely resonates with me, what you said.
Awesome.
Cool.
Good.
Gandhi. What's next?
Wow. Gandhi, what have you been up to briefly? Because you've been up to so much, and we want to get to the technology.
Everywhere. I see you on Twitter.
What's been the highlights? The highlights of your year?
Oh, of my year. Okay. Wow. So I think highlights of my year. One was, being voted in as national RCGP rep was awesome. And I think. Again, thank you to all the listeners out there. Thank you to all the members of the RCGP that voted me in. And, you know, attending my first council meeting was interesting. I've been an observer before, but actually being able to participate and getting up there and participating was really useful. I know I didn't get to say everything I wanted to say, and then I kind of went a little bit off-piste and said some things on social media that may or may not have gone as well as
really?
people.
Did you? Was there controversy? What? Spill the beans?
Well, I was quite unhappy with the partnership review.
Right.
I've not hidden my emotions behind this. I felt that the partnership review that's being done by Nigel Watson at the moment is a very worthwhile endeavour, but I did feel it missed key elements that hadn't been addressed as part of the partnership review. And the debates about why that is, you know, so some would say it's not part of the remit to look at things like the baseline funding, which is my key issue, that the partnership review hasn't even commented effectively. It has in woolly language, but, you know, it didn't kind of talk about it in detail, and definitely didn't ask for a baseline increase in the global sum. Which I think many people would feel is, if you want to make an instant impact in terms of people remaining and continuing and therefore attracting new partners, the first thing you need to do is stabilise the finance and not asking for it. Even if you can't ask for it, you know, fair enough if the answer is going to be no. But if you don't ask for it, you're never going to get an answer.
It adds to that overall narrative. There's something about it being absent, isn't there, which it's potentially problematic. You know, if he's not mentioned it, is it not a problem? You know.
Yeah, which in my head that should be the first ask. There are lots of other things that need changing about partnership, and you know, unfortunately, just before that happened, we heard about the indemnity issue that there's no extra funding for. The
that was also at that council meeting, wasn't it?
It was also that council, and that was part of my point as well. And you know, subsequently, we're now hearing about the next hammer on partnership, which I don't know if you guys have heard about this as of yesterday. The potential increases in employer contributions for pensions, which doubly hits partners because they pay both employer and employee contributions, so effectively taking...
And everyone else's employee.
Everyone else's employees will go up. So
I
think it's a near 20% increase in employer contributions. So as a partner, that now potentially means that almost 35% of your income will go towards the pension, which is a massive cut.
Where's the door? I think I've been out of that pension scheme.
Way to promote it. Hey?
Exactly. So
but it's
anyway, back
it's
to
Christmas.
It's Christmas.
Let's not get too negative.
Yeah, okay.
Let's look forwards.
So this is one of the reasons why me and Andy work so well. I tend to be the slightly more cynical, negative in some ways view.
I'm just a wide-eyed optimist.
Yeah, and he's the wide-eyed optimist.
It's all going to be great.
Yeah, definitely.
It's all cyclical. It'll come back one day.
Definitely. So, you know, I think that was a real big thing for me. I think the other thing has been the podcast and the eGPlearning platform that I do. Work has been amazing. It's been challenging in terms of general practice and that kind of stuff, but you know, it's the nuts and bolts of what I do. So, you know, and my practice has been really good at supporting me and amazing. I think the last thing was the pilgrimage I did that nearly killed me. So people who follow me on Facebook and stuff would have seen it, that I did this lovely 84-kilometre walk in the middle of the Iraqi desert, which near enough has killed my feet and made me have persistent Achilles tendonitis since.
Oh, no.
Not at all bitter about it at all, but no, it was a life-changing experience, and one that I did with my parents, who amazingly did it as well, and I still can't believe they managed to do it.
Amazing.
And yeah, that was really awesome.
Cool.
So yeah, and you, Andy?
What have I been up to? I'll keep this fairly brief so we can move on to the tech. But I think a few things have been really exciting over the course of the year. So a lot of the work I've been doing with the Nottingham City General Practice Alliance. Hi guys, I know you listen to the podcast in the office. Gandhi, you're telling me to lean in, Gandhi?
Yes,
so I'm on the camera.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I think my waveform was looking weak on Audacity.
Yeah.
So now those guys listen in the office, and I've had some good fun working with them on the signposting project and continuing to roll that out to other practices. That's going out to practices in Nottingham and practices in Leeds. So it's a training product for GP receptionists. Gandhi's been involved in a video project with them. So we're making a number of educational videos for patients about how to use GP services and some of the challenges that GP services have, and they're going to be going out on social media.
A slightly different take on it.
And we did a fun video which is a little bit comical about the cold, and that is now being shown as of the new year in the Broadway cinema in Nottingham. It's actually going to go on before
the common cold.
Yeah, before the feature presentation.
Very good.
In the cinema, so I'm going to be on the silver screen.
It's going to go viral.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's going to be amazing.
Hopefully. It's gone mainstream.
So mainstream, yeah.
So that's fantastic.
I'm going to have to go get my popcorn.
And obviously the podcast has been a fantastic journey with Gandhi. And the other thing that I really enjoyed, and we've been talking about the differences between trying to be innovative, being a locum and being a partner. And you can often, there are some downsides in terms of being a partner. It's mainly time commitment and other pulls on your time. But the plus side is you can be quite free to innovate within your own practice. So some things that we've done recently is we've taken our web design in-house at the practice. And we're about in the new year going live with a new website, and we're going to have some video updates from the practice and practice staff. And we've just put together a tablet station to go in the waiting room for people to access self-care information and give feedback on their experience at the practice, which sounds fairly low tech, but if you were in a hospital, procuring that and putting it somewhere might be difficult, but we've just been able to put it in place over the course of a few weeks, making our own decisions. So you can be quite flexible, and innovate on a small scale. So I've been enjoying doing that at the practice.
And guys, if you want to have a look at Andy's website, I highly recommend it's parksidemedicalpractice.co.uk.
I'm going to be checking it out.
.co.uk, yeah.
And the reason why I mentioned that, so Andy's done all the art that's on the website as well.
You have an illustrator hat.
Yes,
don't
yeah.
you?
So I enjoy sketching with my Apple Pencil on my iPad Pro.
Very cool.
So I've done the artwork for the new site as well. And I did the artwork for the Signposting Health training product as well. It's really, really good tip. If you want to make something your own intellectual property, just throw in some unique artwork, and it makes the whole thing a lot easier in terms of retaining the IP rights. Just
and
throw that in there.
Speaking of which, if any of you guys wanted to continue to support the work that we do, Andy's also committed to drawing any of our supporters at our collaborator level, which is not too expensive. We'll put you into the kind of logo background frame that we've got for the eGPlearning Podblast.
That's very cool.
You can be in the logo.
Exactly. You'll be drawn by Andy.
I mean, if that's not a way to get you in, I don't know what is.
Shall we start talking about technology? I'm just
Fine.
thinking.
Sounds good to me.
Been talking about technology, but I'm really curious to know what people think is coming down the line potentially in 2019, or what in health tech has got you excited over the last year, I guess. And we'll talk about the future afterwards. So,
Shubz,
any of you?
You want to lead us off?
Well, I mean, I was going to start with, you guys are doing such a great job with, I guess, helping people and listeners to kind of just get with the program of what's coming, what's going on, and what's been happening. So all the stuff that you've put on Twitter and the videos that you guys have done of resources and websites that really help with things, and I think that's been really like a really useful thing. I mean, personally, in terms of what I've been excited about this year, good question. I think my personal experience is that there's a palpable sense of, although it's been reactive, like regulation starting to move its, move the inertia that it's had, or having to react to what's been happening in the tech in this landscape. And so, people like NICE and NHS England are coming together to do this evidence for effectiveness framework, where everyone's got to be on the same page with the level of evidence and the level of risk that technology has. And so I think that's a really positive step. And even I guess the RCGP are kind of getting on board and getting with the program, and the paper that they've done recently about what AI is, and kind of moving the narrative along to be like, we've had a period of like saying, oh my god, this tech can do everything, to like, oh, actually it can do nothing, and hopefully to moving to I guess along the hype cycle, which we were talking about earlier, which is here's what we know that it can do now, and here's what could look like in the future, and here's what we need to do to get there in a constructive way. And I think we as clinicians are starting to, but need to more kind of be more part of that story and that narrative. I think so. That's what's exciting me, and I think, and that's why it kind of brings me back to what I was saying earlier about the work you guys are doing of saying, hey, these are some really, really great resources and tech out there. I think it's a great resource to have to get us in the know of, helping our own critical thinking and saying, okay, this is useful, this is not, maybe, okay, I can see the potential for this, but so far we need to go from here to here. So that's my thoughts.
I mean, I'd echo that. I think a lot of the organisations are starting to play catch up. And you could argue that they should have thought about this beforehand, potentially. I know the RCGP is looking forward at a lot of the ways that tech is impacting how primary care functions, and they've got particular documents coming out, I think, in the new year that look at that. So that's going to be hopefully useful and appreciated, really. You mentioned AI. AI is probably the thing that's going to change primary care and healthcare in the next at least a couple of years or so. There's obviously a big focus on it, and pretty much you badge anything with either AI or blockchain and you automatically increase its value by significant sums of money and stuff. So, it's where the investment's going as well, whether that's NHS investment, whether that's more likely private investment, fair enough. I know the college are looking at doing, potentially some sort of events around this kind of stuff in the new year. I'm guessing, a lot of the conferences will focus a lot on it as well, which would be useful. In terms of, I guess, other technology, well, there's lots of different things coming ahead. I think the key thing is always going to be, in the UK in particular, we are confined within the kind of restrictions of working within the NHS. And this is something me and Andy talk about quite often. It's one of my biggest bugbears, is how restricted the tech is in the NHS. I mean, we still use Windows 8 for God's sakes, you know, and you know that needs to change in order for us to be able to do more. And people are clearly worried about security, all that kind of aspect, and it's important and definitely sensible because we're talking health data and how important that is. But at the same time, there needs to be this balance of, you can't say we want to be amazing innovators and world leaders in healthcare and at the same time say we're going to give you a Amiga 64 to do it with, you know. So is that right? Commodore 64, sorry.
Internet Explorer 11 or whatever we've got.
Oh. Well, I've got Internet Explorer 8, so I've yet to be able to get past that.
Yeah. So, what am I excited about? I was thinking, one of the podcasts that I really enjoyed this year was when we looked at the wet technology. So not all technology is silicon based, is it? I quite enjoyed looking at the work that 23andMe were doing.
Our genomics podcast.
Yeah, when I sent off my sample of saliva to Holland to have it analysed, and then got the results back, and we had a look at those on the podcast together. That was quite interesting. I think there's a lot of promise in the area of genomics, and personal genomics, personalised health advice, personalised medicine, and I think where that information is obviously interacting with digital technology, you know, in terms of the analysis of that data and crunching everybody's data together, and I think that that's something that people haven't talked about all that much this year, because I think it's gone a little bit quiet. A lot of the focus has been on AI, and I think that it feels like we've gone to the top of the hype curve with AI, and I just get the feeling we're just coming off the top of it. It's had so much promise. Ali Pars is talking about, there's going to be something in your pocket that replaces your GP, that kind of language. And I think we're going to kind of come to find that AI can't maybe deliver all of these things, and my prediction, this is a prediction for the year, so we're going to say the AI backlash. This is my prediction that I was thinking about, and I think we're going to start to see AI not delivering on some of the promises that people have made over the course of the next year. Maybe some negative stories. People might have seen in the news there was the WISER app, which is a cognitive behavioural therapy app for children, which acts like a bit of a personality that the child interacts with, and the child to teenagers, and they it kind of uses the notifications to prompt the child to interact. Oh, hi, how have you been? Anyway, so there was a case where a child disclosed some sexual abuse to the WISER app, and what did the app do? I didn't know what to do, so it didn't do anything at all, and it just sat on the information until somebody was auditing and discovered it. So I think maybe we'll see some more stories about that, about the risk size of AI. Just a prediction. Maybe it won't happen, but AI star waning. But maybe we'll hear a bit more about wet technology again.
Well, I think we will hear the rise of personalised medicine. So you mentioned genomics, and I think genomics is a huge part of that. But it's also the rise of lifestyle medicine that's with that. And people call it different things. There's lifestyle medicine, functional medicine, I think is one of its other terms and stuff. And I think we are definitely starting to see the rise of that, because patients, I think, particularly nowadays, are wanting personalised care. And we don't mean in the sense of necessarily continuity of care. It's also about my condition, my health, how do I manage me? And I think one of the key things I remember, and it was one of my partners that mentioned this to me, patients don't want to know if they're unwell. They want to know if they're healthy. And that's a massively different shift to look at how healthcare is delivered. Because you can argue the NHS is designed to look after you when you're unwell. It's not actually designed to make you healthy. That's public health. And we're going to see that massive can't say it properly.
Disconnect.
Yeah. I was thinking of a more elaborate word, but that's probably a better one. I think we're going to see that happen. And, Matt Hancock's a massive fan of, preventative health. He talks a lot about, keeping active, standing desks, all that kind of stuff. So our current, policy in chief kind of thing is behind this massively. So naturally the policies are going to follow and stuff, and I think we're going to see a rise of, like I said, personalised lifestyle medicine over the next couple of years. Whether that overtakes AI will be interesting.
I mean, I like the sound of that, because that sounds like it's actually focused on a solution rather than a tool. And I think a lot of the focus maybe this year with AI, it's about a technology and a tool, but what problems are we solving with that? What are we actually doing with it? Well, we don't know. It's going to be a useful tool to power things like personalised medicine and stuff. And so I think we'll probably see perhaps AI moving more into the background and actually more solutions focused.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean the AI companies are going to go away. They're obviously a big part of the future, but maybe AI isn't the destination. It's just it's an facilitator,
an
enabler.
I think that's really interesting. I mean, you've touched on a few things there, and that thing of lifestyle medicine, and what do we do in primary care, and what does public health do, and is there a bit of a Venn diagram intersection in the middle where potentially there's a potential to do something there. I think there's some interesting things there which kind of has an overlap with digital technologies and smartphone technologies and precision medicine and lifestyle medicine. And I think one of the big challenges is there's this paradox of, in some places, this kind of technology and smartphone technology has the power to improve access where there's no primary care and do all of this amazing potential stuff, like potentially amazing stuff. But then you have, like, actually, on the same token, the potential for all of these things that we've just mentioned to exacerbate health inequalities, where in socially deprived places where there's no, poor literacy levels, or where actually all of this isn't an important part of someone's life, it's just survival and getting through the day and, all of that. And so I think it's a really interesting thing that needs to be part of the narrative. That's all of this, like whether it's lifestyle medicine or digital health or precision medicine, whatever, all of this, all of this progresses, I think really should be part of the debate of, okay, how do we not widen these inequalities. I think that's a really
about unintended consequences in a way, aren't
we?
Something might help with one thing, but what are the knock-on effects? We've often talked about the way that access is often at odds with capacity, and some of these things can drive understanding of health, but also anxiety around health, which can lead to increased access or demand for capacity in the health service, which isn't necessarily keeping pace. And I think this is another trend that I hope will change, because I think currently technology is quite good at addressing access issues in terms of actually making GPs, physicians, other people more productive and more effective, at dealing with more people per day or whatever, or more complexity. I'm not sure it's actually solving those problems yet. And I'd be excited actually if perhaps some of the focus perhaps moves in that direction.
I agree. I think it may. I think some people would say it has done that. So you can clearly hear messages from people who've done like GP Access, Doctor First, and that kind of stuff, have said that it's made a massive impact to their work life and that kind of thing. Similarly, there's stories where it's done the exact opposite.
Yeah, so my face just drops having done a trial of something like that, and it was a disaster. But yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes down to implementation. It also comes down to education as well. Because if you don't have the concepts of educating your patients about what this actually means, patients will go the path of least resistance, generally speaking, because they will want what they want. And until you deal with that want, they're going to keep wanting it. So therefore, being able to hit that properly is important. So I think that's why you sometimes see the dichotomy of the people, the evangelists saying that this will work no matter the situation. Well, no, it won't. You have to remember that every situation is different, every patient is different, every system is different. Otherwise, if that was the case, we'd have a universal access system that works for everybody. Have you guys seen it? I haven't. No.
It's so interesting as well of like how this might shift our relationship with illness, wellness, disease, being healthy, like you mentioned earlier. And suddenly if you have all of, you're hyper connected, you've got tracking and monitoring, and we've got, genomics, and I know exactly what my background risk of disease X is, and I know what to do. And sometimes is ignorance bliss? Would I rather not know what's going on right now? I feel I don't have any pain right now. I'm not feeling unwell. I feel all right. But if I connected myself to everything that there was possible in the future to connect myself to, would I actually feel well anymore? Actually, there was always something chugging along that might, we're always, we're all on a path to ourselves apoptosizing or whatever it is. And so it'll be interesting to see our relationship with that evolving as well, I think.
So I'm going to use a pop culture reference for that.
Go on.
Have you guys ever watched the TV program Criminal Minds?
No.
So it's a program designed around this behavioural assessment unit that goes around and basically finds serial killers in America, because America's got hundreds of them. Yeah, and it's about this team that is very specialised, very well skilled, and that kind of stuff. And one of the members is kind of like this savant kind of guy that can process crazy. He's like the Sheldon Cooper of the assessment world, but he's actually got people skills. And in it, throughout with the series, one of the things that happens is that he finds out that he's got the Alzheimer's gene, I think it is, in his family. And there's so many episodes which focus around his potential fear that that's going to be something that's in his future, because he I think it's his mum. And apologies if I've got the wrong disease and but it's something along these lines. His mum has Alzheimer's dementia, which there's lots of episodes dealing about that. He then, goes to help and look after her, and then realizes that he's, got a risk of the gene, and I think he finds out that he does have it. And I was looking at this and just thinking, is that what I would want to know? If I was in that situation. And the other part is, it's a risk of it. It's not correct. It's not certainty. Yeah.
Exactly.
But so much anxiety and stress is created. And fair enough, it's TV. It's dramatic. It's meant to be. But then part of me thinks, it's a risk,
and it's not actionable.
Yes, there's nothing you can change about that. It will happen or it won't happen.
Certain risks, they're actionable. So there's an argument that it's useful to know about those things. But those sorts of risks, there's no treatment yet. So
and it comes to that, and then we can go in. I mean, if we had more time, we could go into like overtreatment and overdiagnosis and unintended harms and all of that.
And that
as well.
Probably is the next big movement I think we're going to see as well. So we talked about obviously personalised medicine, AI. Overtreatment is a massive thing, and I think Martin Marshall, who's the one of the vice chairs of the RCGP, has written an amazing paper about rethinking medicine.
Yeah,
that just came out recently, and a lot of that talks about the overtreatment aspects and how many times have we seen patients that are on 20 drugs at the age of 18, you're thinking, seriously, how much of this is sensible and appropriate, and how much of this is actually causing harm potentially because of the iatrogenic effects, of those drugs, of those treatments, of that anxiety as well that you're driving,
Absolutely. I think in Scotland they have realistic medicine as well, and I think Wales have their own incarnation of it as well. But I think that the point kind of amalgamates a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about, which is like, some of this can be addressed if done right, and if it's done in the right narrative, in an empowering kind of way, for example, lifestyle medicine. If it's done in the right way, sensitively, that recognises that person and where they are right now. It reminds me of when I was talking to Rupy of the Doctor's Kitchen. I was saying, like, it's all well and good if someone lives in an affluent area by a Whole Foods market, but how do you get this message to an inner city deprived? Exactly.
Yeah,
and so that message has to shift. Like it has to shift and be very different. But how do you do that in a way that resonates with that person in front of you? And then that part of being personalised medicine as well, like recognising who's in front of you. So I think that's fascinating.
We need that Facebook data, don't we? And then we can personalise the messages and hyper-target the messages to them, which I think is...
Or we can go down the Chinese government route.
Yeah, there's all sorts of ways we can do that. But I think there's something about targeted health messages as well, not just taking on board people's personal risk for conditions, but also this is getting a bit Big Brother like, but taking account of perhaps what some companies know about how they can be influenced to do things for their own benefit. This is sounding controversial now, but is that a route? Is that a route to go down, to hyper-target health messages, give them a nudge in the right direction? I'm not sure. Having just vocalising that, I've become sceptical of my own suggestion there. It sounds a little bit Black Mirror-like. Maybe there's an episode of Black Mirror to come out of that. Lots of possibilities.
Yeah.
Gandhi's just held up the 5-minute marker.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. A question that we ask our guests, and this is dangerous because none of us are prepared for this question, but we tend to ask our guests, if you had £100 million to spend on health technology or innovation, how would you spend that?
So I've already answered this question on a previous episode. I'm going to bow out of this one, guys.
Oh, you can.
Damn it.
tell us what you said before, but with more detail or something different.
Start off. Get my
so
creative juices going.
Start it off. You'll give us some ideas.
So I'll be honest, I can't actually remember what I said last time. It was 6 months ago. I believe it was around the basis of having a fully effective video consultation platform that was universal throughout healthcare. Because at the moment we've got various different providers and platforms. They all kind of do their own little bit and that kind of stuff. And actually it was a unified, singular platform that everyone could use. And you could argue to a degree the NHS app may potentially create some elements of this, but it's not going to have the back end in terms of video consultations itself. It's going to be the unifier, but not the grunt, shall we say. And I would say that if you had that system, and I'm not suggesting you just have one provider, but it's the platform itself, you know, that means that people have the same access, the same quality of service. And you know, I think if you had that, it just make life so many. I mean, how many times would you have felt that if I just had this piece of information that sits somewhere else's repository, I could deal with this here and now? You know, how much time would be saved? How much better metrics would we have from that kind of data rather than people accessing? You know, just unified care, back-ended with a bit of tech. Aye.
Okay, good. Shubz, have you got anything yet?
I think it will kind of be another, like, adding on to that. Yeah. And I think you know, one of the big frustrations of our everyday work is that communication between primary and secondary care. How do we use technology to facilitate our human connections and break our barriers down, between each other in primary and secondary care, but also embracing different ways of working. So embracing ways of working with technology, and B, other health professionals within primary care as well. How do we enable that to happen so that, and this is my bias view because I'm a GP and so are you guys, but how do we then use that so it actually has an impactful effect on us being able to have the bandwidth and the time to spend on complex, preventative, realistic, you know, or that medicine that was rethought, that's much more pragmatic and personalised to that person in front of us. We need bandwidth to be able to do that. It's not sustainable in the current way it is. So how do we use technology and different ways of working and other professionals? So I think I would use a big chunk of that 100 million to use the technology enablers, like you've said, especially that communication between primary and secondary care, but then making sure that those efficiency savings are actually used and are actually, you know, blocked off to say, actually, now we know that you can spend longer with this cohort of patients because they need it. Yeah. And I think we will feel so much more fulfilled in our jobs. That's not everything. That's part of what we want, but also our patients will feel much better about, you know, and less frustrated about their GP, you know. And I think that, that's going to, and if there's any change left over, then, you know, some of the other bits as well, like bits of technologies.
Cool. Right. Oh, okay, right. So I've had the longest time to think about it. So I think mine's, is it a cop-out? No, I don't think it is. So the principle that I think I would like to advance with the money is that I think a lot of the solutions that are coming forwards now are they're not necessarily coming from the helping physicians be more effective place. It's about making the patient journey easier. These are all laudable things, making the patient journey easier. It's about access. It's about making the system more efficient. But I think physicians need to embrace some of this technology themselves and address some of the problems that they know would make them more effective. So, for example, I'd like something that files my blood results in a logical way that follows some algorithms and just highlights where there's a potential problem, you know, in the blood results. And that would save me a lot of time, give me more time for patients. That would make me more effective. But no one seems to be focusing on those sorts of things. So those are the type of physician-based problems I'd like to solve. What would I do with the money? So we're going to set up a series of tech incubators in major places, not in London, because London's catered for.
Maybe Nottingham.
There's going to be one in Nottingham. That's going to be like the big shiny headquarters, and then there's going to be satellites in other more provincial areas.
Sherwood Incubators Limited.
Absolutely, and it's going to be focused on sort of physician-led solutions to problems that make physicians more effective, because I think it's a neglected area of health tech. So that's what I'm going to do with that imaginary 100.
Sounds like a great
million
project.
I'm going to repurpose my idea, because realistically I think my idea is probably going to blow the 100 million in about 10 seconds. So I would go out and create the NHS approved version of Asana.
Interesting.
Okay.
Because there isn't a system that allows you to have workflow management or project management that's applicable across the NHS, because you can't use it with patient data.
I think that's good. I think that's doable with 100 million as well.
Yeah.
Like, easily. So that's a good answer, Gandhi. I like that.
You've helped me repurpose my dreams, Andy.
You can have some of the incubator money.
Thank you.
We'll
that's good to hear.
You in the incubator.
Yeah, we've got a committee going here. I'll give you approval for that as well.
Cool. So we're sort of coming towards the end of the time here. So it's been a slightly different episode. A little bit more free flowing. Hopefully you've followed along and it's been enjoyable.
It's been great, and it's been a lot of the haters thought we couldn't get 2 podcasts together, and they thought the world would implode. But here we are, breaking barriers.
It's all happening, and it's all good.
I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to suggest we do this every year.
Yeah,
well,
How about we make this a Christmas tradition?
Yes,
I like it.
Why not? And we should obviously review our predictions for the next year. So
Yeah.
That's it.
Let's hold each other accountable
for the start
to
AI.
Yeah.
Yes, good. Yeah, picking up on a thing.
Well, it's here for posterity. Everyone's going to see it. So
Cool.
very good. Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for your hospitality. Thanks for your hat. And it's been a real pleasure to come here and chat about what we've been up to and tech. And I feel I feel much more clued up, and genuinely, all the things that you're doing with increasing our awareness of the stuff, tools that we can use, and just being part of that narrative of the changing tides of shifting sands of technology. I think it's really valuable. So keep going. Great.
Yeah, fantastic. And we've been enjoying your podcast as well, Shubz. Meeting all of the innovative and interesting stories that people have. You can pick up a lot of ideas how to spice up your career without necessarily leaving medicine or leaving your post, which is great.
Watch this space, some cool stuff coming next year. So
We're keen to hear about it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and thank you listeners for listening.
Thanks for listening. And so feel free to interact with us all. So you can interact with me at Dr. A.W. Foster on Twitter, avoidingpuddles.com blog, and via the eGPlearning platform.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter as at Dr. Gandalf52 or at eGPlearning. And as always, guys, make sure you subscribe and watch it on our YouTube channel. And those of you that are already watching us, hi guys again.
Yeah, hi guys, giving you a wave.
Hope you're enjoying this video and stuff. But feel free to share, spread the message.
Please do.
You can even perv on us if you want to. I've got this amazing hat, as we keep mentioning.
It's been hard to resist the urges that I've been having here. I've got my braces here as well.
And Shubz, how would people contact you?
Yeah, so I don't know why I used such a complicated one. I should have just done 2 GPs, like at 2 GPs in a pod, but I've put some underscores in the middle, but I'm sure if you start typing it, it'll be there. Check out mygpevents.co.uk as well for, keeping yourself connected with events that are going on around you. And if you're organising events or, organising events that are primary care facing, so all primary care professionals, feel free to put them on. It's completely free, and hopefully it's useful as well. So
just before we finish, a quick little advert, you guys, for mine and Andy's next little project that's coming out on the 24th of January. Thanks to our sponsors, HTN. We are doing part of their digital week, so it's a digital online conference you can join in. Slight little cost, but for that cost, you're going to get 3 hours of me and Andy. Yeah, okay, you may not want that.
I'd pay for that.
But in addition, you're going to get our top 5 apps. You're going to get how to use tech to do your CPD. So I'm sure that's something that anybody would want help with. And also we're going to be looking at social media guidance and that kind of stuff as a clinician.
It's so meta because that can be used for CPD as well.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So that in itself, learning the systems will enhance your CPD. And, if you need a few extra points just to finish off that appraisal, that revalidation, and say to them, hey guys, I'm sorted. Definitely. 3 hours will give you the full update.
And you can do it in your boxes and slippers.
Exactly. Yeah. You can watch this at home in the comfort of your own PJs.
Boom.
Excellent. We'll get you over the line.
Definitely.
Good. Right, so I guess that's a wrap.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks.
Catch you next time.
See you later.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.